Hello, everybody. We are back once again. I've nearly done the whole division happy days, and we've left one of the higher up teams right to the end. We're going to talk some West Brom with Louis from Baggies Pod, who's in a film studies room, sat in front of a lovely poster back there. How you doing, Louis?
I'm very well, thank you, Ben. A bit of an odd place to be recording from, but yeah, happy to be on the show today. Thank you very much for inviting me.
No, legend. So, West Brom, when you put together all the changes and where we are right now, it kind of seems obvious that they would have been doing well, but it's not really that straightforward, is it? Because obviously moving across from Bilic to Big Sam in the middle of last season, and then it was a lot of lone players in that team with Gallagher and the Turkish midfielder whose name you're going to remind me of in just a second, and Maitland-Niles and big hulking striker up top as well. Ishmael came in, and we probably knew more about Ishmael than you guys did whilst you were up in the Premier League, seeing him sort of tear it up with Barnsley last season. But it's been a very smooth adjustment, hasn't it, to Ishmael coming in, a few new faces, the new style, which may or may not be too far removed from Big Sam, probably a little bit of a higher tempo, I would have thought. But what's your take on these first 11 games? West Brom second, 2 points per game, and only suffered their first defeat last time out, and they're not conceding many goals either. What are you saying?
Yeah, well, firstly, the Turkish midfielder whose name escapes you is Okay
Yakuşlu, thank you. Saw him in the Euros as well. A good player, actually, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's a real gem for us. As you said, lots of lone players, and that's been the case really over the past few years for Albion. It's been, I think back to the 18-19 season, just after we got relegated under Alan Pardew, and we came into the Championship, and our team probably had our squad had upwards of 8 lone players in it, which is pretty astronomical, really. And obviously last season having quite a few in there, especially towards the second half of last season, because that was sort of Big Sam's way of getting in some Premier League quality players, because we clearly lacked it throughout that season. And I think coming into this season, I was really sceptical, and I think that's not necessarily a reflection of what I've heard of Valérien Ismaël. I did have to do a lot of asking around from Championship fans, Barnsley fans, and all sorts, asking what on earth is he like? Because obviously I saw Barnsley Chelsea in the FA Cup, which was a pretty good game from Barnsley. I know they lost, but they really did play well, and they really did squeeze Chelsea quite well. So yeah, that was all I really saw at Barnsley. So I did a lot of asking around, and I was quite sceptical about going into this season, because it sounded like it was going to have to be getting rid of those lone players from last season, although some of us wanted to keep a couple of them, especially Yakuşlu. I think was one that I wanted to keep. But I think coming into this season, I was really sceptical about the style of play and whether that was going to adapt to the players that were left from last season. Because obviously the players that were left from last season didn't have much of a game under Big Sam. There was players such as Kyle Grant, who barely really got a kick in the second half of last season. Jake Livermore, sometimes not even in the match day squad. Now the club captain. Well, obviously I've been club captain all this time, but now the captain this season and the main guy in the midfield. So quite odd seeing all these players sort of coming back from the dead, really, and coming back from the bowels of Big Sam's suspension reserves. But this season has certainly been
first mention for Big Sam's bowels on the channel, I think.
Yeah, definitely. This season's been. I'm really impressed with the way that the players have just taken to Valérien Ismaël's style of play, and of course the high tempo pressing, I think, has been something that I've been really impressed with. And it's been a whirlwind of a season so far. It's certainly very entertaining brand of football. And I've enjoyed it so far, despite that loss against Stoke City. I hope that's just a little bit of a one-off, but yeah, I've been really impressed so far, and obviously second in the table, only just being beaten for the first time. I can't really complain.
Absolutely no. I don't know if I'm in the minority here. Maybe I'm just saying this because I cover the league. I would have quite enjoyed Big Sam back in the Championship. Yeah. I thought that might have been good. That might have been good fun, but. I mean, if you had have asked me, I would have probably had the same skepticism as you, because sometimes when this manager comes in and just immediately has this sort of very, very quick success. And this is not to criticize the style, but it is simplistic. It's about fitness. It's about energy, intensity, directness, and just swarming the opponents. Obviously, it's very easy for me to sit here and say, but they have picked it up really fast, haven't they?
Yeah, they've just, it's been really strange because I expected it to take quite a while for these players to get back into actually playing a professional game of football, to be honest, and getting back into playing league football. But I've been really impressed with the way that just the players have adapted to it. Obviously, we kind of, I know we've brought in some players over the summer. Alex Mowatt is one that, has come in and really influenced the squad, having played under Valérien Ismaël last season. And I can only think that he's helped other players adapt to the style of play. But I think the way that, it's just been phenomenal, the way that they've come in and he's come in and he's just transformed this side from a side that just looked like they couldn't buy a win last season to this season, just looking to really push on and win as many games as possible in the Championship. I think, it's just been a surprise. Obviously, we had the players from last season, be it they didn't play very often due to the loans. But I'm surprised how quickly they've really come in, and it's testament really to Valérien Ismaël. He's clearly a very good manager, and he's clearly showing that he's got fantastic skills with managing players. I think such as Grady Garner and Karlan Grant, who were very underconfident last season. They came on the pitch a few times under Big Sam, and they just looked a shadow of the players that we saw. Obviously, Karlan Grant playing for Huddersfield in the Championship. I think he got 19 goals. I wouldn't have thought he'd get
first season there as well.
Yeah, exactly. So those two players, I think, they've almost risen from the dead this season, and they've shown to be really good. And I think that's also testament to Ismaël and what he's doing at West Brom at the moment.
It's really interesting how you framed that, because I would watch Big Sam's interviews last year, and he constantly, and he's right, but he's banging on about draws and point per game and get into 35 or 38 if they could. And you're totally right. Ismaël will happily lose if a game's 0-0 going to stoppage time to try and win it. You mentioned a few names there. Is there anyone you could sort of single out who you've kind of enjoyed most watching in a Baggies shirt this season so far?
I think there's a few, to be honest. Obviously, it's been such a successful season so far, so there's lots of names from plus with who I'm going to say that I'm hoping to see back again against Birmingham is Matt Clark, who I've been really impressed with, who's come in on loan from Brighton. Obviously, he's been injured over the past few weeks, which has been quite annoying, but from what I've seen of him, he looks, head and shoulders our best defender. And the same really could be said about Dara O'Shea, who's again injured, which is unfortunate. The players I'm picking are currently injured. But Matt Clark's been really impressive. I think having a left-footed centre-half in a back three is so crucial for that balance, especially as got Bartley and Ajayi in there, and they couldn't use the left foot if you gave them if you gave them 5 left feet, I think they probably wouldn't use one. But I think Matt Clark adds a lot of balance to that back line, and his combination play with when he was fit with Townsend and Dean Garner and Grant down that left hand side, I think has been critical. I think a notable mention for Callum Robinson as well, who's looked fantastic. Obviously, international break has been flying through the goals for Ireland, so we're hoping he can continue that form when they come back and get ready for the rest of the Championship season.
It's real sink or swim for centre-backs, the Ismaël system. They're either in and out and done within about 2 games because they're so far up the pitch and have such a big hole behind them. But Hellick and Anderson, I wouldn't be surprised if at some point he goes in for Hellick from Barnsley at some stage. But centre-halves either sink or swim, and if they swim, they do tend to stand out in that high line and that system. Has there been a standout performance so far this season? I remember doing the Sheffield United game, but I did think that was as much as Sheffield United being in a very bad moment and just getting completely drowned by the intensity. I remember the one against Blackburn where sort of showed up and really pushed on. Is there would it be maybe one of those two?
I probably would veer. I think Sheffield United is probably my favourite game because obviously at the start of the season it was relative. I think it was about 3 or 4 games in, and Sheffield looked. Obviously they didn't start the season very well, but on paper looked one of the best sides in the division, and probably still are, to be honest. And I think that was my favourite performance because it was just amazing how long throws had just suddenly become an integral part of West Brom's play style. But I think my standout performance, I think, has got to be Cardiff, the 4-0 that we had. Yeah, just a couple of weeks ago. I think that really, because before that we'd had quite a few draws, Millwall, Preston, who has Darby as well. So I think that was when the question started to arise for Valérien Ismaël, because he was kind of playing this lot. He was playing this more direct style of play against a team like Millwall, and the ball was just coming back every single time and playing this sort of long ball, trying to get it over the top. And obviously Millwall are so strong in the air, it's just not going to work. So that was when questions started to arise around Ismaël and whether he's willing to change and adapt his play style and play a bit of a shorter passing game. And against Cardiff, he did that. And we played along the floor against a physical Cardiff team. We know how good they are in the air with, Sean Morrison and Aidan Flint at the back. And we kind of just bypassed their aerial threat by playing along the floor a bit more. And I really like that performance. I think that was probably the most complete performance I've seen from Albion this season. Alex Mower, scoring that lovely goal that he clearly took to not winning the goal of the month personally. So yeah, I think that was probably the most complete performance I've seen from Albion, simply just because Valérien Ismaël played a short passing game and it worked, and it showed that to me that he's not tactically naive. Really, it shows that he's willing to adapt and change his play style depending on opponent. So that one is definitely the most complete for me.
I don't watch Albion for short pass, and I want chaos. I want people pressing for 90 minutes straight. Which player do you think, and without digging anybody out, as I always preface this with, that you can maybe get a little bit more from? I suspect we might be going for an ex-West Ham winger here, and maybe some numbers that might need to start occurring. But is there anyone you think can grow into the season and contribute in a way that maybe they haven't so far?
Yeah, I think we'll go for that certain West Ham winger. I think we'll go for Grady Diangana, who I've been impressed with in parts this season. I think the only thing that's missing for him, he's still doing the dazzling runs. He's still taking 3 or 4 defenders out the game with skills and tricks. But I think the only thing that's missing really is the goals and assists. I think he got his first goal contribution in about a year. I think the last goal contribution he got before the Cardiff game was Everton at the very start of the Premier League season last year. So yeah, I think goals and assists is just something that he needs to add to his game. And I think it's just confidence. I think with him, he's had such a rough ride last season under Big Sam, hardly getting a game. And when he did get a game, it was 15 minutes off the bench against pretty tough opposition, usually when we were losing. So it's quite hard for him. And I think, I do sympathise with him a little bit about how he was in and out the side last season. So I'm hoping that this is going to be sort of the start of him getting some more goals and assists. But yeah, the performances have been there. It's just those goal contributions that have been lacking from Diangana, and hoping to see those hopefully come out soon.
Yeah, and that's obviously with the big nuance that maybe didn't work in the Premier League, but he and Pereira destroyed the Championship under Bilic. So there's a reason why the expectation is high, because in theory he's not a worse player than he was then, and he had such a good season. We're going to do the higher or lower thing, which was obviously tricky with the Bournemouth supporter we spoke to, and similarly with West Brom. I'm sure you don't care about being higher in the slightest, as long as you don't go any lower. Everything is fine. But I suppose to reframe the question, which is higher or lower by Christmas, do you see West Brom being in there for the long haul with this manager? And looks like a good squad, and everyone brings up the year one parachute money allows maybe some higher salaried players to hang around, and I suppose the question is really who would go past you as well if you were going to drop lower. So do you see West Brom being in that top 2 at Christmas?
I think so, and I think I've tried to be sort of level-headed about it. At the start of this season, I picked us for a 4th place finish, which was, Albion fans absolutely ribbed me for that. They were saying, "What are you doing? We're gonna win the league. We're gonna storm through." I've seen a few flaws in Valérien Ismaël's system that says perhaps there could be a bit of a dip in form, and obviously we've had a little bit of a dip in form with those 3 draws. I think that shows probably how good we've been this season, because that classes as a dip in form as having 3 draws. But I think I can see us being there at Christmas. I think Bournemouth and I think Fulham are the 2 teams that I just think I think they're a little bit stronger than us personally. and I could see them easily finishing above us. But I think that we could beat them on our day, I think, if we played to the fullest of our potential, which might take us above one of them. But yeah, I think those two are stronger than us. But however, I still think that we'll be second place at Christmas. If it's not second, I still think we'll be definitely inside the playoff place at Christmas.
Yeah, 100%. And you start to look at it, and I admire what Stoke and QPR are doing. Coventry is just if they stay anywhere near them, that's just amazing. That's brilliant. Any of those clubs is going to take a perfect, no injuries, stay in good form, and they just don't have the resources that the parachute teams of Bournemouth, West Brom, Fulham. I know Stoke had the parachutes until up until last season, but that's where it can make a difference when Jordan Hugill or whoever can come in for Grant, Dean Garner, Phillips, Robinson. It's those extra resources that can make the difference, can't they? So we're looking for a grade. I assume it's going to be a good one for the season so far. Good old school letter grade then. Louis, what are you thinking?
I can't give us anything but an A, I don't think. I think I could be really harsh and give us something like a B because we lost last time out, but I think that would be almost dismissing the fantastic start to the season we've had. So I'll give Valérien Ismaël a big A to kick off Albion season. Yeah, I think that's probably fair.
No, I totally agree. And it's very, very binary. If he gets them promoted, he's done a good job. If they don't get promoted, he's done a bad job. It's so, with the expectations of people like West Brom coming down from the Premier League, that's how it. And we had this with, I keep saying this to people, we had this with Scott Parker and Fulham in 1920, where people were saying, oh, it's not working. I don't think it's going to work. Yeah. He won the playoffs and he got them up. And that is the cure-all, to any argument for a manager up there. Louis, legend, thank you very much. First time on the channel. Do you want to give us a plug for your Twitter and for the Baggies Pod, and what can we expect to find there?
Yeah, well, firstly, thank you very much, Ben, for having me on the show.
Legend.
I'm a bit of a confessed fan of your channel, to be honest, Ben. But I run the Baggies podcast, which is a weekly show all about West Bromwich Albion. We talk after games, tend to have a fair mix of fans on with Albion fans, and also some ex-player episodes that we've been recording over the past couple of weeks, which has been quite fun. So yeah, if you want to go and check us out, we're just the Baggies Podcast. If you search that, YouTube podcast platforms, you'll find us on there. Or if you want to go and follow us on Twitter at the Baggies Pod, which is where you can find sort of all the social media stuff surrounding the episodes for when the episodes are out and stuff like that. So yeah, it'd be greatly appreciated if you fancy listening a bit more from me, having droned on for a bit here. If you want to listen to more, there's plenty more if you want to find that in those available platforms.
No droning on here. It's been fantastic. Louis, thank you so much for coming on. Good luck to the Baggies. You just got to stay right where they are, and all will be well over at the Hawthorns, won't it? And keep up the good work, fella.
Thank you very much, Ben. Pleasure.